You know those chess games that go 20, 35 moves and all the pieces are still on the board? Those are my types of chess games. In this game, I forced every single one of my opponent's pieces to the 8th rank, and that's doing that to a 2700. So I'm going to show you guys how to dismantle the French defense. This was one of my best French games ever. There's going to be tactics all over the place, a lot of maneuvering, and it's a follow-up video on the Bourdonnais, how to beat the French. Now, in that video, someone commented, what do I do if my opponent goes pawn to c4, gaining a tempo on the bishop? And I said, because I said pawn to c4 is always a bad move. This is going to be a follow-up video on that idea. Good job for leaving questions. I like answering questions, right? I'm never going to be a world champion. I don't care to hide my prep. I don't care to hide anything. I like teaching chess. I love everything about chess. That is why I post videos on chess. So, pawn to f4, the Bourdonnais. I love this move because we love f4 on this channel, whether it be the Grand Prix, whether it be the King's Gambit, whether it be the Bourdonnais, we like f4. We like rook lifts and we like checkmate. So we get pawn to e5, pawn c5, and normal development, right? They are playing a French after all. These are all essentially pre-movable moves. What is the point of pawn c3? What is the point of pawn c3? Well, if you watched the last video, how to beat the French defense, you know that it's to route this knight over to c2. You know that in the French, everything hangs on a razor's edge on d4. It doesn't so much hang on a razor's edge when your knight is on c2 protecting d4. That's an extra defender that usually you don't even have on the critical square. Things to note, if they go pawn to d4, I like to go bishop to d3 so that you prevent this queen trade. Although my student was like, can I go knight a3? I was like, that's actually a good point. You can exactly go knight a3 because that lures a mistake by black where this is actually a favorable queen trade, right? This is a very Magnesian position. It's a queenless middle game. And if you want to tempt your opponent to make a mistake, by all means, I'm all for it. So knight a3. See, I can even learn from my students. I mean, it's a great move order trick. I was very happy he brought that up. Very smart guy. So pawn to f6. Too early. This is a break in the French, but it's too early. You shouldn't do it this early. And what would you do here? Many people would go pawn to d4. I went knight to a3. It's kind of irrelevant, the move order, because it will transpose, and I'm always happy to see d4 because I love planting the bishop on d3. So it's kind of a move order trick to tempt black into making a mistake. We get takes, and you take with the pawn, right? You want to statically freeze their pawn structure, not dynamically. That would be a dynamic blockade because the knight can be removed. The pawn, a lot harder to remove. Knight h6, the best move. Knight c2. And now d4. So usually black's knight comes to f5. And the reason it comes to f5 is to just have good square coverage everywhere. And that's when you meet it with bishop to d3. Knight f7, the reason it's not a good move is because, yes, he's aiming at e5, but I'm just going to go d4 and solidify. The only reason I could think of that he would want to do a move like this is 9 times out of 10 I want to take with the c knight in the Bourdonnais, but here I would need to take with the pawn. It's an exception position because you need to maintain this blockade in the center. Since you don't have an f-pawn guarding the e-pawn, you're going to need a d-pawn guarding the e-pawn. But since you don't have an f-pawn, this bishop is very good. It's a very good bishop. We got bishop to e7, bishop to d3, and now pawn to c4, and this was your question on the YouTube video. How do you deal with this? Well, if I remember correctly, the question was asked when this pawn was on d2, which allows for more flexibility, but you're going to see it's very similar. The bishop slides back to e2, and again, you're just happy with this extension. You might be like, oh, but he's going to overwhelm b4. Does he have time to? Do you think he really has time to overwhelm b4? I don't think so. White gets a brawlic attack, and what is the threat? Is the threat bc3, bc3, and there's no way for him to attack the base of the pawn chain? Not to mention maybe you'll get bishop a3 over here. I don't think that's the threat. I don't think there is a threat. So that is why c4 is typically always a mistake, and we're going to learn how to punish that. So we get castles. Look at this. Connect 4 overwhelms the connect 3. This bishop pair is good. This bishop pair not so much. This game is amazing. I hope you guys stick around because this is one of my favorite games I've ever played. I mean, the things done in this game shouldn't be all too legal. As I like to say, we can say that. We brought back bullying. for the people. B3, attacking the, I guess, head of the pawn chain here, hoping he takes, because then A takes. You're just challenging the integrity. And again, C3 is weak, but you can park this bishop on D2. And yeah, I wouldn't park it on B2 because that's going to take a long time to open. So the bishop on D2, you're just developing, right? Black is maneuvering. He's trying to get his pieces out, but look who's cramped. And you see, the reason there was no trades in this game is because I didn't allow it to happen, right? Why would white want trades when he has the space advantage? Black is very cramped, so the more trades he gets, the less cramped he will feel. You don't want him to feel less cramped, right? So it's like putting your opponent in a pretzel. You don't want him to move. You're like, no moving for you. Let me move all around, and you get no movement. So we get pawn to A6. Maybe he wants to go pawn to B5, and we get queen to E1. Not so much to set up a battery, right? This battery doesn't matter, even though, yes, good job, it is a battery. You know your vocabulary. It's to route over to the king side. It is to route over to the king side. Now, I actually want to talk about this move. He went knight to A5, threatening a fork in 1. A tempting move to play here is B4. But you must dwarf your temptations. Neutralize your temptations. Don't give in to your temptations, because if you do, you create holes into the position. Look at that. You lost all of your advantage. Whether he wants to give a fork, whether he wants to go to C4, jumping into the hole, you don't want to make your opponent's pieces good. You completely locked up your queen side. There's no mobility in your pawn structure. It's a whole frozen structure. And now he has tangible targets that he can threaten and compromise, challenge the integrity. So rook to B1, right? Guarding the pawn, keeping your pawn structure flexible. You can move it later on, and this knight at the end of the day is on the side of the board. Some of you might be like, oh, but isn't this a tactic? No, it's not a tactic, because that is a fork and it just doesn't work in your favor. So we get rook to B1, pawn to B5, and queen to G3, aiming in at the king here on G1. Queen D7, look at black's position. Not so good, not so great, not so fantastic. Now, principle of two weaknesses, aim at E6, aim at H7. He went queen D7 because he saw the move queen H3, but you're still tying him down to a weakness, to the base of a structure, so it's still the best move. We get pawn to G6, and then knight to H4. What is the point of knight H4? Well, the point of knight H4 is you just want to take, and checkmate. There's no way to stop checkmate on H7 because the 7th rank is so blocked. And soon he's going to be all on the 8th rank. Knight H8, look at that. Move of the year. Actually not a bad move because it aims at G6. It protects G6 rather. We trade rooks because it helps white's position. And then we rotate back to F3. See, so we're inducing weaknesses, structural weaknesses, and then we're routing over to G5 to add pressure to the base of the pawn chain and to threaten checkmate. Okay, he's routing back as well. Rook F1, rooks like open files, knight to G5. Right, look at this. Have you ever seen this? It looks, I turned it into a Fisher random game. That's what this is. This literally turned into Fisher random, chess 960, freestyle chess, whatever you want to call it. Fisher random, that's what I call it. And he just can't move. He can't even get to the 7th rank because then queen takes H7 is just checkmate. So I'm actually happy he didn't resign here. He went queen E7. Find the winning move for white. There's a few. There's many. So my student actually picked out rook F7, which is hilarious. Rook F7, the point is, if he takes with anything on the 7th, there's queen H7 checkmate. But I don't know, I would not want to lose a rook and a knight for that queen. I would have felt like I lost a lot of the advantage. So you know what we played here? We played the move rook takes F8, and it is deemed a brilliant move, so I am happy about that. Rook takes F8, and the point is, if queen takes F8, it is still a checkmate. Queen takes H7, he goes king takes F8, knight takes H7, so you win 4 points for 5, but you also have a beautiful knight, and the king is rendered useless. Now, how do you win this? Brilliancy number 2, bishop H6. The point is, if king takes H6, or king takes H7 rather, you'll pick up the queen with the discovered check, and you will checkmate him with your queen. So we get king to F7, queen to F3 check. The king has to go to G8. You get a fork, but you don't want the fork. You want the discovered check. Look at this. This is disgusting. I'm sorry, but this is absolutely disgusting. The king is forced to g8, and he resigned here. What's the best move on king h7? You don't take the rook. No, no. You end the game quickly. You go queen f8, and there's no one who could stop queen g7, checkmate. So this was one of my best French games ever. I hope you guys enjoyed. This is how to punish an overextension in the French. This was against the 2700, so hopefully your opponents play c4 as well. Thank you as always for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace.